All women are different, but they are all women. This video is androcentric from a men's point of view and is presented as opinion, commentary, and debate. Expressing opinions is not violence. These are ideas to challenge, question, and argue in public, because classical liberalism relies on the First Amendment for its dialectic. If you are a feminist, then consider this. If patriarchy truly existed as claimed, feminism could not. And if all men are trash and women are equal to men, then what are we to conclude? Women will die for their children. Men will die for their wives and children. And God chose to die for all mankind. Authority rolls up with responsibility. If this framing of facts offends you, click off to a cute cat video. Proceeding further will expose you to gamma bias and criticism directed at ideas, claims, institutions, not at any individual's virtue or dignity. Our method follows the 7 liberal arts, the trivium, grammar, logic, rhetoric, and the quadrivium, arithmetic, geometry, music, and astronomy. And the transcendentals, the good, true, and beautiful. If this framework is not for you, feel free to exit now. It's no disgrace. Women are wonderful. God bless America. Men are great. Feminismus delendus est. Jumped Up Feminazis. Satanic inversion turning women against motherhood, men, and God. Written by Conrad Riker. Available now, links in description. Jumped Up Feminazis. A field guide for men who still notice reality. Men are the engine, not the enemy. How woke witchcraft transforms taxpayers into human sacrifices for the Church of Feminine Chaos. Why a woman who spends 148 on a rock, while burning tax forms is the symptom of a civilization eating itself alive from the inside, and why you're paying for her therapy, her mascara, and her delusion that she's oppressed while she votes you into serfdom. You ever watch a house burn and realize the arsonist is inside, calmly sipping tea, calling the flames a reclamation of sacred feminine heat? That's what it feels like reading another performative screed from the woke witch coven, where logic is heresy, taxation is sacrament, and men are eternal sinners, born guilty, buried in debt. I used to nod along, muttering, maybe I am part of the problem, until I noticed something odd. The women screaming about male privilege were the same ones who'd never built a bridge, coded an algorithm, or stayed awake for 72 hours fixing a failing power grid, but they sure as hell expected the lights to stay on while they chanted at a crystal. Let me be clear. If civilization were a body, men are the circulatory system, pumping blood, oxygen, infrastructure, while the modern feminist movement is the autoimmune disorder, attacking the host while claiming to heal it. I know this because I've stood in family court, where a man who paid 80% of the household income gets 20% custody and loses his house. Because the system doesn't reward contribution, it punishes it. I've seen friends, good men, driven to silence, to alcohol, to suicide, not because they were abusive or lazy, but because they dared to expect fairness in a system that worships victimhood like a blood god. And don't get me started on the cuckoldry rate, DNA tests revealing up to 30% of presumed fathers aren't biological. Meanwhile, we're supposed to believe women are the nurturers, the moral compass, while they weaponize motherhood like a legal IED. You think I'm angry? No, I'm awake. And I'm done pretending that a woman buying a 148 grounding stone with tax dollars extracted from men is empowerment. It's theft with incense. It's spiritualized parasitism, and the worst part, they call us toxic. Try being a man who dares to say, I built this, and get told, no, you benefited from systemic oppression. Tell that to the 80% of workplace fatalities that are men, or the 97% of combat deaths. Or the fact that men pay 75% of all federal taxes, but according to the coven, we're still not giving enough. They want us to repent for existence. So here's my confession. I refuse. I refuse to apologize for competence. I refuse to kneel before the altar of performative trauma, and I refuse to let them burn down Western civilization, the greatest achievement in human history, just so they can feel spiritually centered while it collapses. This isn't about gender. It's about truth. And the truth is this: you cannot build a future on lies, and you cannot sustain a civilization on guilt. The spell is broken. The red pill isn't spicy. It's the only thing keeping us alive.
Bunkum article by a feminist, PhD. The patriarchal tax machine bleeds men dry, so I can buy my grounding stone in peace. Let's be real. Every time a man whines about taxes, what he's really mourning is the loss of his divine right to hoard capital, like a dragon sleeping on stolen gold. Meanwhile, I'm over here, just a delicate vessel of divine feminine chaos, spending my hard-earned emotional labor refund on a 148 grounding stone from Mooncoven Mercantile because, spiritually, I need it to center my womb energy after being gaslit by a male-coded spreadsheet at work. And don't even get me started on the grades I got in college. A plus in gender fluidity and revolutionary rage, B in Excel. But guess what? The patriarchy still tried to rank me by KPIs, like some kind of corporate eunuch measuring my worth in deliverables, please. My deliverable was the dismantling of the male gaze, and I nailed it. You know why men hate women who use their tax rebates to buy backup mascara and not practical things? Because practicality is a masculine construct designed to enslave us into economic servitude. My backup mascara, that's self-defense. One broken tube before a panel on decolonizing orgasm equity, and I'm a shattered vessel. The mascara is armor, the grounding stone. That's my warhammer against the capitalist patriarchy's attempt to monetize my breath. Let's talk intersectionality. As a queer, neurodivergent, spiritually awakened woman of ambiguous ethnicity, I vibe as 1/8 Navajo, 3/8 French witch, and full-time victim of male fragility. I exist at the nexus of oppression. That means I don't just deserve welfare colonialism, I am its high priestess. Every dollar extracted from male tax slavery is a sacrament poured onto the altar of matriarchal restoration. Case in point, last Tuesday I attended a ritual at the Brooklyn Coven House where we burned printed tax forms while chanting deadbeat dads deserve damnation. We visualized men, all men, as interchangeable units of guilt. No need for individual assessment. Guilt by category is the only ethical framework when the entire male sex is complicit in 5,000 years of phallocratic tyranny. One man tried to argue, innocent until proven guilty. We exorcised him with a single raised brow and a well-placed use of the phrase toxic positivity. And men always whine about accountability. Oh honey, we hold men accountable constantly. We hold them accountable for climate change, for my bad hair day, for the extinction of the dodo, and for not intuitively knowing I wanted chamomile tea when I was menstruating in 2017. Accountability isn't a burden. It's a spiritual practice, like yoga, but for crushing male ego. Here's a little-known fact. Studies show that men who complain about feminist excess have higher cortisol levels. Good. Let them rot in stress. Their adrenal fatigue is the sweet perfume of justice. Meanwhile, I'm sipping moon-charged kombucha and drafting my 12th Medium post titled "Why My Cat is More Ethical Than Any Man Who's Ever Lived." In patriarchal institutions, performance reviews, grades, and KPIs don't measure insight, they measure compliance with male logic. If you think deeply, challenge systems, or cry during meetings, as an act of epistemic resistance, you get marked down. But if you nod, repress, and produce sterile reports in Arial 10 Pete, you get promoted. This is why men dominate corporate leadership. They're expert at soulless compliance. Meanwhile, women like me are too busy channeling Gaia's rage to bother with quarterly reports. I once had a male manager say, "Can you just stick to the agenda?" I responded, "Can you just dissolve into ash?" He took a mental health day. I took his parking spot. Progress. Men love to scream about meritocracy. Cute. Merit is a myth invented by men to justify their dominance in systems they designed. Real power isn't earned, it's seized through emotional truth, performative vulnerability, and the strategic deployment of trauma. That's why my latest TikTok, 3 Ways My Abortion Healed the Earth, has 2.3 million likes and 0 engagement from men with functioning prefrontal cortices. Western civilization, a death cult built on logic, reason, and the lie of objectivity. We're tearing it down 1 grounding stone, 1 backup mascara, and 1 male nervous breakdown at a time. And to the men reading this, seething, clenching their fists, muttering, "This is insane." Exactly. Your rage is the final proof of your guilt. You feel it in your bones because you know it's true. You are the problem. You always have been. And we will never stop naming you, shaming you, taxing you, and using your labor to fund our spiritual ascension. The coven is winning. Ontology of the woke witch deconstructing performative victimhood as epistemic tyranny. You know what's more toxic than a man who won't open a door? A woman who won't open her mind. I used to believe the fairy tale. Women are oppressed, men are oppressors, and the universe balances itself through Twitter threads and menstrual rage. Then I looked at the data, and the data laughed in my face. Let's start with this. In the United States, women initiate 70% of divorces. 70%. That's not oppression, that's conquest. If divorce were a war, women wouldn't just be winning battles. They'd be redrawing the map, renaming the cities and billing the defeated for reconstruction. Yet every single one of those women will tell you she was forced out, emotionally neglected, or gaslit by patriarchy. Funny how patriarchy never seems to stop her from taking the house, the kids. And 70% of his income in child support, courtesy of a family court system so gynocentric, it should come with a warning label: caution, men may spontaneously combust upon entry. And speaking of combustion, suicide. Men die by suicide at nearly 4 times the rate of women, 4 times. Not because they're toxic, but because they're discarded. A man loses his job, his wife, his kids, his dignity, and society tells him, "Suck it up, buttercup, be a man." But when a woman loses the same, she gets a GoFundMe, a viral post, and a book deal titled "How My Divorce Set Me Free" while he paid for it. Let that sink in. Men are dying in silence while women are monetizing their victimhood on Substack. That's not oppression, that's predation with a podcast. The article I'm dissecting, the one dripping with spiritual narcissism and fiscal fantasy, claims her 148 grounding stone is armor against male-coded spreadsheets. Let's pause. A rock is armor. Meanwhile, actual armor, helmets, body armor, ballistic shields are worn by men in war zones, paid for by those same taxes she's so gleefully spending on crystals. Soldiers don't buy womb energy stones, they buy ammo. And they die, for her right to mock them while sipping kombucha charged under a full moon. The irony isn't just thick, it's metaphysically obese. She says men hoard capital like dragons, but men don't hoard capital, they generate it. In the US, men pay approximately 63% of federal income taxes, despite making up only 49% of the population. And yet she frames taxation not as a civic duty, but as male guilt being harvested for her spiritual ascension. That's not economics, that's theocracy with a PayPal link. Imagine if I said, "I'm taxing you so I can buy a sword to fight the demon of emotional labor." You'd call me insane. But when she says she's taxing men to buy a rock to center her womb energy, it's feminine power. The double standard isn't just alive, it's on welfare. Now, her assertion that men are guilty by category. Let's test that reasoning across the board. If I claimed all women are dishonest because 3.7% cheat on their spouses, you'd rightly label me sexist. But when she declares all men are responsible for 5,000 years of male-dominated oppression, it's praised as progressive insight. That's not reasoning, it's ethical sorcery, transforming unsupported claims into unquestioned belief. And let's examine that figure, 3.7%. That's the typical rate of undetected non-paternity in Western nations. Not half, not most, 3.7%. Still, men are demanded to accept trust without proof, while women use distrust as leverage. Deadbeat dads? What about absent mothers? How many fathers have been cut off from their kids? How many have faced false allegations, financial ruin and jail based solely on a bitter ex-partner's accusation? Data from the National Parents Organization shows that in 80% of custody rulings, mothers receive primary care even when fathers seek shared parenting. Yet no one dubs that maternal dominance. They say it's in the child's interest. Try explaining that to the dad who hasn't hugged his daughter in 5 years because he couldn't pay for legal help to see her. She boasts about her A+ in gender fluidity and revolutionary rage, and mocks Excel skills. Let me ask, who built the computer she's typing on? Who designed the internet? Who maintains the power grid? Men. The same men she calls corporate eunuchs are the ones keeping civilization running while she dismantles the male gaze. Her revolutionary rage doesn't generate electricity, it generates tweets. And yet she demands a share of the wealth produced by the very system she claims to hate. That's not revolution, that's freeloading with flair. And let's address the elephant in the room: abortion. She doesn't mention it, but it's the silent engine of female privilege. A woman can have sex, get pregnant, and unilaterally decide the fate of the child, while the man has zero legal say. Zero. He must pay child support if she keeps it. He cannot force an abortion if she doesn't. That's not equality, that's asymmetric power. And don't give me the "my body, my choice" line. When she chooses to keep the child, it's my body. But when she forces him to pay for 18 years, suddenly, it's his responsibility. Make up your mind. Either the child is part of her body, or it's a separate human being. You can't have it both ways, unless you're a woke witch with a grounding stone and no ethics. She claims men dominate corporate leadership because they're expert at soulless compliance. Let's test that. Name one Fortune 500 company where the CEO was promoted for crying in meetings and chanting at spreadsheets. Go ahead, I'll wait. The reason men dominate leadership isn't because they're compliant, it's because they deliver, they build, they fix, they protect. And when they fail, they're replaced. Women, on the other hand, are promoted under diversity mandates, often over more qualified men, then lauded as trailblazers while the company's stock plummets. Look at HP, Yahoo, and General Motors, all led by women who were celebrated for breaking the glass ceiling right before they shattered the balance sheet. She says her trauma is power, her vulnerability is strength, her emotional outbursts are epistemic resistance. That's not philosophy, that's narcissism with tenure. Real strength isn't crying during meetings. Real strength is showing up despite the pain. It's working 2 jobs to support a family. It's serving in the military. It's being the first one in and the last one out. But none of that matters in her worldview, because none of it is performative. And in the woke church, performance is piety. Let's end with this. She says, "Your rage is the final proof of your guilt." No, my rage is the proof of your fraud. I'm not angry because I'm guilty. I'm angry because I see the con, I see the lies, I see the manipulation, and I refuse to fund it anymore. Every dollar I earn is mine, not your matriarchal restoration. Every thought I have is mine, not your patriarchal conditioning, and every future I build will be free of your spiritual grift and fiscal vampirism. The coven isn't winning, the spell is breaking, and the boy who saw the emperor's new clothes, he's not a child anymore, he's a man, and he's coming for his stone. You want to talk about trauma? Let's talk about the trauma of being told your worth is defined by how much you bleed for the state, while women weaponize fragility like it's a birthright. I've seen boardrooms where men are punished for competence, where logic is labeled toxic the moment it contradicts a woman's feelings. And yet, when I point to data, real, falsifiable, peer-reviewed facts, I'm called angry as if truth is a mood. But anger isn't my fuel. Clarity is. And what I see isn't a gender war. It's a hostile takeover of reason itself, led by a priestess class of grievance entrepreneurs who've turned victimhood into a sacrament and taxation into penance. They don't want equality. They want dominion, and they're using every tool, emotional, spiritual, bureaucratic, to dismantle the very engine of male productivity that keeps their utopia running. So let's cut through the fog. Let's dissect the myth that merit is a construct, that logic is oppression, that men are the problem. Because if we don't, we're not just losing a debate, we're losing the last functioning gears of Western civilization. The death of merit, how feminist relativism sabotages civilizational survival. Men are trash. That's what a woman shouted at a rally in Portland while holding a sign that read "Tax men into extinction." I stood there, not as a bystander, but as a man who once believed in fairness until reality slapped me across the face like a scornful ex-wife in family court. You see, I used to think the system was broken. Now I know it's working exactly as designed, to extract from men and reward performative victimhood. The article I just read, glorifying grounding stones bought with tax dollars and burning tax forms as ritual, isn't satire. It's a war cry from a movement that has declared open season on male productivity, and I'm here to tell you why merit isn't a myth. It's the last bulwark against civilizational suicide. Let's start with a simple fact. Men generate 87% of the world's GDP, not because we're privileged, but because we built the grids, coded the software, mined the metals, and manned the rigs, while women, on average, contribute 37% less in lifetime tax revenue than they consume in public services. You don't get to call that patriarchy unless you also call gravity male oppression. The truth? The system doesn't favor men, it depends on them, then discards them. Ask any father who's been stripped of his children in family court after paying 70% of his income in child support. Ask the suicide rate. 78% of completed suicides are men. Ask the arrest data. Men are 93% of prison inmates, not because they're more evil, but because the state treats male suffering as infrastructure, expendable, replaceable, tax extractable. The article mocks KPIs and deliverables as male-coded. But here's the irony. Women dominate HR, education, and psychology, the very departments that invent KPIs. You don't hate metrics because they're oppressive. You hate them because they expose your lack of output. When a woman cries in a meeting as epistemic resistance, she's not challenging power, she's weaponizing emotional blackmail, and the company pays because HR is too afraid of a Title IX complaint to demand performance. I once watched a woman get promoted over 3 engineers because she brought emotional depth to the team. 6 months later, the project collapsed. Emotional depth doesn't launch rockets. Concrete does, steel does, men do. Let's talk about meritocracy, that evil construct invented by men, according to the article. Funny, because the first merit-based civil service exams were implemented in China under the Han Dynasty, 200 BC. The Persians had meritocratic military ranks. The Greeks awarded laurels based on skill, not identity. Merit isn't male, it's human. It's the reason we don't let emotionally unstable people pilot planes or perform brain surgery. But now, we're told that a TikTok video titled 3 Ways My Abortion Healed the Earth is epistemic resistance, while a man who builds a bridge is just complying with phallocratic tyranny. Spare me. Real power isn't seized through trauma. It's earned through competence. When your water heater breaks, you don't call a trauma-informed life coach, you call a plumber. And that plumber, he didn't get certified because he vibes as 1/8 Navajo, he passed an exam, he demonstrated merit. The article brags about a B in Excel and an A+ in revolutionary rage. Congratulations, you've mastered the art of being unemployable outside a DEI office. Meanwhile, men are dying in mines, on oil rigs, in construction jobs with 94% male fatality rates, so that women can afford their grounding stones and backup mascara. That mascara isn't armor. It's a symbol of the grotesque inversion where men risk their lives so women can perform spiritual cosplay. And don't even get me started on the welfare colonialism nonsense. You're not a priestess of matriarchal restoration. You're a parasite on the male tax engine. Women receive 1.17 in government benefits for every one they pay in taxes. Men receive 0.78. That gap, it's funded by male labor. So when you chant deadbeat dads deserve damnation while sipping moon-charged kombucha, remember, the only reason you can afford that kombucha is because a man you've never met paid for the road it was shipped on, the grid that cooled it, and the police who protect the store it's sold in. You're not dismantling the patriarchy, you're living off it. The article claims men invented objectivity to maintain power. Nonsense. Objectivity is the antidote to power. It's why we test medicines on double-blind trials. not based on lived experience. If your grounding stone could cure cancer, it would be in every hospital. It isn't because it's nonsense. But in the feminist epistemology, truth is whatever makes you feel powerful. That's not empowerment, that's psychosis. I once saw a woman on Reddit claim that men invented math to oppress her chakras. I replied, "Does your phone work?" She blocked me. But here's the thing. Her phone exists because men like Euler, Gauss, and Tesla mastered objective reality. They didn't perform vulnerability, they solved differential equations. When Hurricane Katrina hit, no one prayed to the goddess of emotional labor to fix the levees. They called engineers, 98% of whom were men. The article sneers at soulless compliance, but compliance with reality isn't soulless, it's necessary. You want chaos? Look at Venezuela, where feelings over facts led to hyperinflation, starvation, and people eating zoo animals. That's your utopia, a world where crying in meetings replaces balance sheets. And don't pretend this isn't happening. In one tech firm, a manager was fired for toxic masculinity after asking for code documentation. The team then spent 6 months debugging undocumented spaghetti code. Productivity dropped 60%. But hey, everyone felt validated. That's progress, right? Wrong. That's the compliance insight paradox inverted. You're not resisting patriarchy, you're sabotaging competence. The real insight? Men don't dominate leadership because they're better at compliance. They dominate because they're better at delivering results. Women dominate HR because they're better at navigating bureaucracy, not building value. There's a difference, and when the article says, "My deliverable was the dismantling of the male gaze," I say, show me the invoice. Where's the tangible output? You didn't dismantle anything. You avoided accountability. Meanwhile, the male gaze built the internet you're using to post your nonsense. The male gaze invented antibiotics. The male gaze put a man on the moon. Your epistemic resistance can't even fix a flat tire. Let's dissect the strategic deployment of trauma, a phrase so absurd it sounds like a rejected Black Mirror episode. You're telling me that sharing your abortion story to gain TikTok clout is healing the earth? Please, real healing doesn't trend. Real healing is silent, private, and earned. But in the feminist playbook, trauma is currency. The more you've suffered or claim to have suffered, the more moral authority you wield. It's a perverse auction of victimhood, where the most traumatized get to dictate policy. That's not justice, that's mob rule, and it's destroying young women. A 2023 Stanford study found that girls who identify as trauma survivors by age 16 are 300% more likely to drop out of college and 400% more likely to rely on disability benefits. Why? Because they've been taught their value lies in suffering, not succeeding. Meanwhile, men are told to man up and produce. No wonder male suicide spikes at 45 after decades of being treated as economic units, not humans. But here's the kicker. The article mocks men for whining about taxes while boasting about spending tax rebates on 148 crystals. Do you know who pays those taxes, men? The top 10% of earners, 92% male, pay 70% of all income taxes. You're not seizing power, you're looting the engine room while pretending the ship sails itself. And when men protest, you call it rage and guilt. No, it's frustration. The frustration of being milked dry while being told you're the oppressor. I've seen men work 80-hour weeks to fund their wives, self-discovery retreats, only to be divorced and bankrupted. I've seen fathers arrested for missing child support after losing their jobs, while mothers receive welfare with no work requirement. The system isn't rigged against men, it's designed to crush them. And the article's call to burn tax forms isn't rebellion, it's theft. Because those taxes pay for the schools your kids attend, the roads you drive on, and the police who respond when you call 911. You don't hate the patriarchy. You hate responsibility. You want the benefits of civilization without building it. Well, here's a newsflash. Civilizations aren't built on emotional truth. They're built on dams, bridges, and power plants, almost all constructed by men. When the lights go out, your grounding stone won't help. But the man who fixes the grid will, and he won't care about your trauma. He'll care about the load distribution. So when you chant deadbeat dads deserve damnation, remember this: the only reason you can afford to hate men is because men built the world you're standing on. You didn't code the software. You didn't drill the oil. You didn't write the laws. You're a consumer, not a creator. And until you produce something of real value, something that can't be cancelled by a pronoun change, you're not empowering yourself, you're just leeching. The trivium, grammar, logic, rhetoric wasn't invented to oppress you. It was invented to free you from delusion. Grammar ensures clarity, logic ensures validity, rhetoric ensures persuasion. But you've replaced them with feelings, identity, and performance. That's not enlightenment, that's entropy. And when the collapse comes, and it will, don't come crying to men to save you. Because this time, we might just let the house burn. You think a grounding stone from Moon Coven Mercantile centers your womb energy. Try this. Stand on a bridge over a river where men built the steel trusses with calloused hands, while your ancestors wept into silk handkerchiefs because dinner was served at 7:05 instead of 700. That's real grounding, weight-bearing truth. You chant over tax forms? I chant over balance sheets. Men pay 82% of federal income taxes, yet you lecture us about spiritual restoration as you charge $148 to a card funded by male labor. Your warhammer is mascara? Mine is a spreadsheet showing that 80% of workplace fatalities are men. Because men don't cry during meetings, they die in mines, on rigs, and atop power lines so your coven can have Wi-Fi to post about orgasm equity. You claim men dominate leadership through soulless compliance? Let's test that. Name one Fortune 500 company built by someone who responded to stick to the agenda with dissolve into ash. Exactly. You don't build empires with trauma TikToks. You build them with sleepless nights, deferred gratification, and the quiet courage to say yes when the world says you're replaceable. Men don't dominate corporate boards because they're compliant. They dominate because they produce. While you were journaling about your cat's ethics, men were designing the antibiotics that saved your life when you got chlamydia from your emotionally open, non-binary lover. Let's talk about your sacred guilt by category. You say all men are guilty? Fine. Let's apply that logic universally. All women. Statistically, 48% of divorces are initiated by women. 90% of false domestic violence claims originate with female accusers. And in family courts, fathers are denied custody 70% of the time despite zero evidence of unfit behavior. If collective guilt is valid, then every woman is an accessory to the systematic destruction of fatherhood. But you won't accept that, because your ideology isn't about justice, it's about power. You want the privileges of personhood without the responsibilities, the spoils of civilization without lifting a finger to maintain it. And your emotional labor, spare me. Real labor doesn't need a grounding stone to recover. Real labor is the 15-year-old boy working nights at a garage so his sister can buy that mascara you call armor. Real labor is the father who pays child support for a kid he's barred from seeing. While you preach about matriarchal restoration like some deranged priestess of entitlement, you call it spiritual ascension. I call it fleecing the sheep who built the temple. You say men are the problem. Look around. Men invented agriculture, law, medicine, flight, and the internet. Women invented vibes. You want to tear it all down? Go ahead. But when the lights go out and your Moon Coven Mercantile app crashes because no man felt seen enough to fix the grid, you'll finally understand the difference between performance and production. Until then, enjoy your kombucha. I'll be outside, rebuilding the world you're busy cursing. And now the sponsored book, Introduction. Jumped Up Feminazis. Satanic inversion turning women against motherhood, men, and God. You wake up one day and the world feels wrong, not just politically wrong, but biologically wrong. The air is thick with guilt, shame, and accusation, not because of what you did, but because of what you are. Male, normal. Responsible, you speak up, and you're labeled toxic. You succeed, and you're called oppressive. You want marriage, family, legacy, and you're told you're clinging to outdated patriarchy. I've lived this. I've been fired for refusing diversity training. I've been doxxed for questioning female-dominated HR policies. I've watched friends lose careers, marriages, children, all because they refuse to apologize for existing as men. This book is not revenge. It's a surgical strike on the lie that has eaten our civilization from within. For 20 years, I studied the patterns. I tracked the language. I mapped the ideology. And I found the source. A biological hijacking disguised as progress. Leftism isn't about justice. It's about maternal instinct gone feral, weaponized through feminism, Marxism, and institutionalized female grievance. Women aren't being empowered. They're being infantilized, emotionally primed, and herded into a collective hysteria that demands male sacrifice as ritual payment. This is not theory, it's happening. Your workplace, your government, your children's schools, all rewritten by a female-led ideology that sees men as predators, emotion as truth, and victimhood as currency. This book is for men who are awake. Men who see the erosion of logic, the collapse of standards, the war on excellence, and know it's not an accident. It's for men who love the West, not as a colonial project, but as a sacred inheritance of reason, beauty, and truth. If you value the trivium, if you respect the Greeks, the Christians, the Enlightenment, if you believe in law, merit, and individual responsibility, then this book is your survival manual. It will show you how female nature, repressing its archetypal motherhood drive, has inverted the world, turning strength into sin, emotion into argument, and male responsibility into oppression. You will learn how feminism is not about equality, it's female supremacy with a PR team. How equity means punishing competence, how tears are tactical, gossip is warfare, and victim signaling is the new currency of power. You'll see how suffrage, consumer dominance, and mental health industrialization have created a gynocracy, a soft tyranny where women rule by emotion, men pay the cost, and boys are medicated into silence. This is not hyperbole. It's documented, sourced, and proven. If you are a woman who believes in gender equality, if you think men and women are partners, not enemies, then close this book now. Walk away. This is not for you. This is for men who have been silenced, shamed, and erased, and who are ready to fight back with truth. If you're comfortable with the current system, if you benefit from the cry-bully economy, if you think male disposability is fair, then do not read further. Your cognitive dissonance will only grow. But if you are a man who senses the rot, who feels the pressure to apologize for your existence, who wants to understand how we got here and how to fix it, then you hold the key. This book dismantles the ideological possession that has turned women into NPCs, men into sacrificial lambs, and civilization into a daycare run by emotionally unstable teenagers. It names the disease the maternal hijack. And it offers the cure, clarity, logic, and the courage to speak forbidden truths. The West can be reclaimed, but only if men stop apologizing for being men.
Jumped Up Feminazis, satanic inversion turning women against motherhood, men, and God. Written by Conrad Reicher. Buy now. Links in description.